فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفا ألوانها ومن الجبال جدد بيض وحمر مختلف ألوانها وغرابيب سود ومن الناس والدواب والأنعام مختلفا ألوانه كذلك إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء إن الله عزيز غفور إن الذين يتلون كتاب الله وأقاموا الصلاة وأنفقوا مما رزقناهم سرا علانية يرجون تجارة لن تبور ليوفيهم أجورهم ويزيدهم من فضله إنه غفور شكور.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه من تبعهم إلى يوم الدين. Inshallah, today we'll talk about the theme of Surat Fatir. And this surah was revealed in Mecca. And its theme is the importance of studying Allah's creation as means of comprehending and understanding and knowing Allah's attributes. Because frankly, if you read the Quran, you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as an abstract concept. But if you study what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have produced, the creation of Allah, you can really appreciate what the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that reinforces in your mind who is Allah. So the surah actually started by giving us this image about the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creation and His creation of the heavens, the earth, and then the remarkable spiritual being which is endowed with magnificent forms. And these are the angels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala start, Alhamdulillah, Fatir al-samawati wal-ard, جاعل الملائكة رسلا أولي أجنحة مثنى وثلاث ورباع. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises all bring to Allah, the originator of the heavens and the earth, who made the angel messenger with wings in 2s, 3s, and 4s. And He increases in creation what He wills. Indeed, Allah has power to do anything. Then the surah makes it actually, and this is the part that you listen to, makes it very clear that you will never know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly unless you study His creation. And therefore, the surah comes and said, if you really want to know Allah, you better have advanced knowledge in many of these natural sciences. And to know Allah, because if I tell you Allah is a creator, well, how do you know Allah created? I mean, how you can appreciate the creation of Allah unless you study His, in this regard? How do you know the wisdom? Allah is the most wise. Allah is the most knowledgeable. How do you know it? Until just a statement you read and you act, you believe on it. But if you really study, then you recognize these things comes to life. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have this. It started with Alam tara anna Allah anzala min as-sama'i ma'. Okay, Allah sent water. with the same water فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفة ألوانه. Then Allah sent the rain from the sky, and from it He produced fruits having different colors. The soil is the soil, the water is the water, but the fruits comes from different colors. Even from the same tree, sometimes you get fruits of different colors. You know, so directly, Allah, when you look at this, what are you studying? First of all, to know the water and how the water comes, how it's distributed, how it moves, you need to study climatology. This is a science. You have to do it to appreciate why Allah says how this water moves, how it comes, where is the water comes from, and why. Why Allah? Why you get the system of evaporation that the water evaporates up and then comes back again? And if you study it, you recognize if this Allah didn't make this cycle, all of the water will be polluted. But this is a means of purification system, and now you can use it and develop the purification. When people do desalination and so on, what they do, this is a process that sometimes they use. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, so study one, أنزل من السماء ماء, and that give you a subject to study. Then فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفة ألوانها. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes and talk about ثمرات, the ثمرات, all of the vegetable, the fruits and so on, which mean you study botany to understand what is the difference between them. How would the seeds bring this, And it always amazes me, frankly. You put a seed in the ground, and then when the stem first comes, how would the world then penetrate and breaks through this hard soil or hard rock? I mean, it's not like a stiff stem. It's a very soft that you can break it easily. But how can it penetrate through it? And then, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمِنَ الْجِبَالِ جُدُدٌ بِيضٌ وَحُورٌ مُخْتَلِفًا وَغَرَابِيبُ سُودٌ. Then suddenly Allah talk about geology now, about all of these mountains, and about all of the colors of these mountains, of various colors. Some white, some are red, and some very black. Why? Why is the difference between the different colors? And why Allah created it this way? And then Allah continued and said, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ وَالدَّوَابِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ. Then directly Allah talk about now the biology and the animal sciences. That also مختلفا ألوانه, that they are also of different colors. Why? If you think about it, we all sitting here, we look different. If we all came from one man and one woman, why we're different? So that directly tell you what is the system. And if we look at it from the genetic code, we, almost the same. All of us the same. So why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created these differences among us? Then Allah ended with it, كَذَلِكَ إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ غَفُورٌ. And Allah subhanahu only those who fear Allah are the knowledgeable one. Al-ulama. Al-ulama is scientist. If you talk about biology, you talk about botany, you talk about climatology, you talk about animal science. These are not ulama of religion. They religion, but the religion of the creation. The revelation of the creation, the ulama of it. So Allah, and this is why if you translate ulama here, it has to be the scientist. It cannot be somebody who studied hadith or studied, Arabic language or something. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, basically, no one, fear Allah, yakhsha Allah truly, except those scientists. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these scientists among his slaves, among the people. Indeed, Allah is almighty, oft forgiven. So if you look to this actual structure of this, Allah first innama emphasize indeed, But then the structure of the word يخشى الله من عباده العلماء in the Arabic language, commonly ordered in a verb sentence, you get the verb, the subject, and the object. If I want to write this proper, as Arabic, I would write يخشى العلماء الله. And I start yakhsha, who fear the verb. Al-ulama is the subject who fear. And then Allah is the object to be feared. But Allah reverses the order. Allah, innama yakhsha Allah, the object comes before the subject. And when linguistically, when you do this reverse, it makes it exclusive. It means that only them. So not only innama, indeed, the emphasis, but also the structure of the of the phrase, it makes this emphasis that only those people will actually have this issue of fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we come to this word, which we translate yakhsha means fear. But is yakhsha means fear of what? Are those people fear of the hellfire? Or the word yakhsha, actually, it is not like yakhaf. It is means actually, if you study Allah's creation, what do you have? You have a fear or you have this sense of an awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You recognize who is this greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you really want to translate it properly, it should be actually an awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's the sentence and the context of it. It doesn't mean they are afraid of hellfire or afraid of punishment. No, they have studied these things and they recognized how Allah is capable to do anything and the wonder of these creations. So, and this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Wallahi inni la'a'lamuhum, when he talk about inni la'a'lamuhum billah, I know more about Allah than anybody, وَأَشَدُّهُمْ لَهُ خَشْيَةً, and I am the one who's strongest in awe from all of them. So then, it's interesting also when Allah talk about this, the science, you said, oh, now Islam talk about science. But now the second verses, following verses, it directly talk about something else. It talk about devotion to the religion, the practices of the religion. It said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَتْلُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ. So suddenly Allah talk about the science, study the, basically the universe, study all the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and said studying this does not conflict from your devotion to the practices of the religion that I also revealed the commands I revealed to you in the Quran. And this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَتْلُونَ, those who recite the book of Allah, and وَأَقَامُوا, establish the prayer, وَأَنْفَقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُم, talk about now the practices of a Muslim. وأنفقوا مما رزقناهم سرا وعلانية يرجون تجارة لن تبور, and then spend in a charity from the money we have provided them secretly and openly. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say ليوفيهم أجورهم, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pay the reward in full, and they give them even more than more out of his. Well, if you look at it from أنفقوا في سبيل الله is economy too, but at least you can. So when you look at these verses, a study of the universe and the religious observances, there is actually a harmony. It's two sides of one coin. It's connected with each other, and therefore through science, the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And through the Quran and the practice of it, the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how you connect one with the other. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes in the surah and provide a lot of other information, also scientific information, that require you to reflect on it. Allah comes in and we talked about now in just one surah, we talked about climatology, the environment. We talked about botany, we talk about geology, we talk about biology, we talk about animal sciences, and then we talk about economics in a way. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes and now talk about the wonders of creation, the origin of man, who you are related to him. And therefore Allah, Wallahu khalaqakum min turab. He started your creation, started from dust. So you recognize, because if you becoming so knowledgeable, sometimes it might go in your head that now you are a Superman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring you now to the ground and said, look where is you started from. You were dust, you were nothing, you were turab. And then ثم من نطفة. Then after that become a nutfa. And then ثم جعلكم أزواجا. Then you are becoming, basically you becoming pairs, male and females. And then Allah, no female conceives nor gives birth without his knowledge, and no life of a man is lengthened or shortened but in a book. That your life span is known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surely that's easy for Allah. That's easy for Allah. Then when you study this, when you look at your own creation, because Allah directly study your own creation too in this regard. And here is you come with the wonders really. Because you remember, the whole issue, frankly, sometimes I feel an evolution of man, where is he came from, and this upgradation of man and so on, that people look at it and they try to interpret, Darwin's theory and so on. Frankly, in my mind, is absurd, you know. Because the whole Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, Allah tell us in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah make anybody witness your creation. Okay? He'd make anyone witness the heavens and the earth or the creation of you. So then the only way you know your creation, it comes from the Quran, from the steps that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have said. Now, I'm probably digressing here. The concept of basically having this some humans type, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upgraded them to bring in the new humans. You know where is that concept came from? Came to establish that there is super race, that there is people whom Allah upgraded and people Allah didn't upgrade. Therefore, we are better than them. And therefore, you get like, the Aryan race came in by building up in that concept of upgradation. Unfortunately, sometimes people work on it and said, yeah, yes, man was a little bit inferior and Allah did this to him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you created Adam, we all came from Adam, he sinned it, accepted, and don't think about it, think about your own self. Think about you right now, because you continuously to be, actually there is an evolution in you. So why I want to look for evolution billions of millions of years ago, why I cannot look to evolution of me right now? Where we all started from? Then we started from one cell. One cell. Half from a man, half from a woman. One. And when a child is born, how many cells he have? This cell started breaking down until become you get this, infant, the child at birth. 30 billion cells. So you started with one. This one came breaking. And the amazing, it is the same cell. It keep breaking until become 30 billion cells. And every cell has a function, although it started as one. Which is really amazing and unique function. Because if Allah did not designate for every cell, because obviously the cell that go in your heart is the same like the cell go in your eye, the cell go in your ear, the cell go in your nail. Can you imagine if suddenly this becomes a random process, and suddenly your heart, the nail grow in your heart, and your ear go in your leg, and no human being will ever be, complete like us. And you have to say, Subhanallah, how come, who has control on it? And yes, once a while, Allah subhanahu give people get deformed at birth to recognize this is not a common thing. This is a plan. So don't take it for granted, in this regard. But the other amazing part, actually, that even after you were born, you are being replaced. Your cells that you born with change, So if we come, this skin of ours, this skin get replaced, turn over every 2 to 4 weeks. So the skin I have today, if I see me another 2, 4 weeks, it's going to be different skin. And then the red blood cells, they have a lifespan of 120 days, So because it has to be renewed, So not only the blood that you have is the same. After 4 months, it's different blood. The intestine, the intestinal tract, they said it get replaced every 3 to 5 days. This is a process. Isn't that evolution for us right now? And then the bone, because we grow, so the bones have to change. The bone, tissues undergo constant remodeling. And all the bone tissues being restored, and there's another bone tissues to repair, give you strength and repair damage and so on. This is happening. Do we really feel it? It happened automatically. So tell me now, what is the one cell that doesn't change? The brain. Can you imagine if Allah subhanahu replaced the cells in our brain? Then we will all forget what's happening. You know. But Allah keep it all what it is, there is build. There is build more neurons or brain cells. So if you look at this, you say, how do you know this? How do you really appreciate what Allah is doing to all of us right now? And we sitting here feeling very comfortable. We don't feel a change, but Allah subhanahu changing us. And isn't that we'll say, oh, subhanallah. So then Allah subhanahu continue also with other things that he have created for us to help us, basically study how Allah, oceanography, the oceans, directed us to study the oceans, and the water in it. Why the water? You get sometime, here is two seas, some of them has fresh and sweet water, pleasant to drink, and the other one has salt. And these are sometimes connected to each other. Why they don't mix, in to protect? And why the salt water? And then he said, and in all of them, wherever is a sweet water or a salt water, and there is always going to be fish for you to eat. And then bring from it ornament that you can wear. And then in it also, Allah give it, allowed you build the ships, and the ships you can go through the water and travel. And then so that you may seek bounties of Allah from one continent to other, from one place to another. So Allah subhanahu, so how are you going to do this? By study oceanography. You study water sciences, and understand this. And in that case, each time you get this knowledge, it's subhanallah. This is Allah that I'm distracted with all the time. This is Allah that I am standing in prayer and my brain is wandering everywhere. I'm standing in front of him. And then Allah continue. He refer, okay, look at the above. Astronomy now, study it. يولج الليل في النهار ويولج النهار في الليل. Then Allah merges the day on the night in the day and the day on the night. And then he subjugated the sun and the moon. Every one of them is going yajri li ajr, and every one of them are moving to an appointed time. And directly when you study this, you said, wait a minute, is everything is moving? Yes. Not only we are moving, the earth is moving, the sun also is moving, not only rotating about itself, but it's also moving, and everything in the universe is moving. So Allah, and it's one time, they all will vanish again. Allah said, they are there, they continue to move until appointed time. I have put in. ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبُّكُمْ لَهُ الْمُلْكُ. And then Allah subhanahu said, this is your Lord that you worship, who created all of these things. But وَالَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِهِ, but anything else that you call, invoke instead of him, they don't have control. They don't even own. Oh, a qatmir. Qatmir is if you take a date, the bone in the date, then the skin around the bone. He said they don't even own this. Not own the meat of the date. No, they don't own the skin around the bone of the date. That's qatmir or qatmir. Then Allah subhanahu continue and said, without me, you wouldn't survive. Allah subhanahu say, Inna Allah yumsiku samawati wal ard. And here, Allah subhanahu, then it becomes in Allah subhanahu say that he is the one who holds firm the heavens and the earth. Because if he didn't hold them, they should deviate tazula. They will leave. They will be basically eliminated, deviate, from wherever they are. Then you come and say, how Allah hold them? How Allah hold the heavens and the earth? That we look at the sky and why we are here. Then suddenly you are going to study mechanics. You are going to study gravity. You are going to study inertia. You are going to study centrifugal forces, why the rotation, everything has to be rotated, around. So you keep the this and the gravity, push them together, and the rotation will push them apart. But it has to be accurate, because if the gravity takes over, the sun, the earth and the sun and the moon will be sucked by the sun. Sorry, the earth and the moon sucked by the sun. If the inertia forces or the centrifugal forces get a rotation become faster, they will move away from it and they get away, lose each other. Then Allah subhanahu also said, not only study, but part of the natural science of the sciences is to study history also. Look at history. Look about those people who really didn't heed my message. What happened to them? Then Allah subhanahu, أَوَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Didn't they go walk on this, travel on the earth, on the land, and see what happened, the end of those people who before them? Isn't everybody died? And look at the people we have destroyed before that. And they were even stronger than you are. And they were. Because like the people of Ad, they were stronger than anybody. Where they are now? You know. And كانوا أشد منهم كانوا stronger. وما كان الله ليعجزهم من شيء. But nothing can, basically be superior in power than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he said, Allah subhanahu not only in earth, but anything in the heavens and on earth. And Allah كان عليما قديرا, that Allah is knowing everything and all powerful. Then Allah subhanahu say, I am patient and tolerant with you. Because if I hold you accountable for anything you do, none of you will be here. And so Allah subhanahu وَلَوْ يُؤَاخِذُ اللَّهُ النَّاسَ بِمَا كَسَبُوا مَا تَرَكَ عَلَى ظَهْرِهَا مِنْ دَابَّةٍ. That if Allah subhanahu will punish people because of what they have earned, no one living creation will be exist on the surface of the earth. But Allah subhanahu come and say, but Allah يُؤَخِرْهُمْ إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُسَمًّى. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them respite to an appointed time. So delay it to us. All warning in this case. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the surah comes in and discuss these people who associate others with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, reflect, think. قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ شُرَكَاءَكُمْ الَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Just did you consider, did you think about all the partners that you invoke beside Allah, that you do shirk with Allah? Did you think about it, in this regard? Show me what they have created. Okay, you study the science, you study my creation. Then, so Allah directed them also to the non-believer to study the creation. And if you study the creation, how can you do this? أروني ماذا خلقوا. Show me what they have created for earth. Or do you have any book that tell them they have created something else? They were joined with me on this, in this creation. Then Allah said, but the transgressors, or rather the wrongdoer, do not promise each other except delusion. Here is the issue that you probably face. So here's Allah subhanahu says, if you study the creation of Allah subhanahu, excel in all of these sciences, you will know Allah and you will have an awe of Him. And Allah directs the disbeliever to do the same and said, show me. Then directly you will come and ask me a question. He said, if this was true, why we see many accomplished scientists are atheists? Which is true. You look at many of the people who people consider them as a great scientist, they are atheists. Why? How come this didn't work with them? So I give you here a couple of examples. Actually, I gave a talk before on this subject about atheism between arrogance and stupidity. And the stupidity for the Muslim kids who always think, we don't believe in God. I said, this is a stupid kid. And why basically the scientists, the great scientists that we respect from their science and their accomplishment are atheists. So I give an example by Dr. Martin Rees. Martin Rees, has published so many books and published many papers, cosmology and astrophysics. He has, subhanallah, you read what he writes and his conclusion and his calculations. And you say, how in the world somebody cannot believe that God exists? This guy came with this force in, and the N is the ratio, you know, between the strength of the electrical forces holding the atoms together and the force of gravity between them. So it's the most fundamental force. We're not talking about the atoms. He said, if this number, and he calculated the number, if this number it changed by 1 every 10 decillion. Now, what's 1 every 10 decillion? Is 10 to minus 34. That you take, say, a meter divided by a billion divisions, that's 12. Then divided by another billion division, take one of these 1 billions divided by another billion, then take it and divide it by another, basically million, then you come with 1. If the whole force changed by this minute amount, the universe wouldn't exist. I said, Subhanallah, how come? And a guy like this, that means it is so accurate, that Allah, everything is so precise, that minor changes, none of us will exist, and the universe would not exist. Then, let me see here. I was trying to make an example just to relate this, how accurate this is. Obviously, you cannot come. I said, if you are an accountant, and let's say Brother Anwar is an accountant, is a guy, you own a company, and he hired an accountant. And the accountant was supposed to have his number accurate because he presented the government. If there's an error in the number, the government will take over the company. He will lose the company. So his assets is $100 trillion. Okay, is a number. Now, and here is the point: if the accountant made an error 1 cent in $100 trillion, the government will take over. And this number is 10 to minus 16. The forces that Reese was talking about is 10 to minus 34. So look at how accurate. Can you imagine? You lose a 10 trillion company. Actually, you said million trillion company, still 1 cent. And it's not be the accuracy of this. This is how much preciseness and conciseness. There is no tolerance. There is no chance of error in this one. Another one is Stephen Hawking. Everybody knows Stephen Hawking, and he obviously is a theoretical physicist and cosmologist. He said, if the universe expansion rate, differed by 10 to minus 15 per second, after the Big Bang, the universe will collapse over each other. That the speed of expansion, if it changes by 10 to minus 15 per second, then in that case, the universe will just not exist. So I'm trying to think of something. I said that the universe now, life of the universe, as scientists say, it is 13.7 billion years. Okay, that's the length of it. So if somehow instead of 13.7 billion years, it get reduced by 1.2 hours, we wouldn't exist. That expansion rate has to be so precise. Now you come and say, how come those guys do not believe, for this one? So their argument is this. And if you hear discussion of them or you read about it, the discussion, and sometime you said, one of them, which Reese said this actually. He said, if God exists, he would not create a universe with this condition that require this level of precision. No. In fact, actually, from his arrogance, he said, I could create one, more fault tolerant than this. You can't even create a skin of a date, for God's sake, So, but this is one of the other ones who also do this. And this is the one you hear most common. They said, we just cannot put God in a mathematical equation. In all mathematical equation, how are we going to incorporate God in it? So they do this. Then the question is, what counter argument you are going to make if a person this is his views? What do you do? Nothing. Actually, you can make a counter argument. You said, Subhanallah, there's Allah will never, this person will not be, will never believe. And then Allah subhanahu give us, this verse from Surah, it's in another places. He said, those people will never believe until they see the punishment of Allah subhanahu.
If their heart, they know 100%. Because if you go to that extent, it's impossible that you cannot understand. All the scientists to achieve some level, they understand, they know, but they cannot proclaim. They don't proclaim that thing.
Okay. I think the statement was made that all of these scientists, actually, we don't to go, they express this, maybe that's an ego, they want to show how superiority, you're right.
Role of church, that behind it, actually, which is keeping them together, separate.
Yeah. And the statement was made because maybe those scientists who live in Europe, because of the whole, basically the church, how the church went into science and corrupted the scientists and they prosecuted them. They wanted nothing to do with the church, with the God, and so on. And maybe that is which is different than the Muslim. The Islam, I was just talking about verses, encourage Muslim to study science and leave it to them. So anyway, then Allah subhanahu says, comes in. But the verse which I said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ حَقَّتْ عَلَيْهِمْ كَلِمَاتُ اللَّهِ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. That, the words when Allah, the Lord of your word, confirm it upon certain people, they will never believe. وَلَوْ جَاءَتْهُمْ كُلَّ آيَةٍ. No matter how much science you give to them, until they see the painful punishment. Then sometime, when you read this, which I said, wait a minute. Is Allah have decreed to some people not to believe? Obviously, no. And that's why when you look at the Quran, you look at whom Allah let go astray. Read it, because you find Allah, those go astray who do injustice, who do this, associate other. I mean, there is a lot of negative things. Allah does not lead anybody astray until Allah give him so many chances and that person refuse. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leave him alone. It's almost like you advise somebody, and in the end you give up in him and said, okay, you are on your own now. Then if you comprehend Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a Muslim now, if you comprehending these attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you studied this, I mean, would you really want to seek help from anybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When you think about it, why Muslim today seek support and help and honor and respect from everybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Afraid from everybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? How can this happen? And then therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you want to honor, you want dignity, you want prestige, the only one who can give it to you is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those people you might seek them, but they despise you. They take advantage of you. You think they are friends, but they are not your friends. You think they respect you? No, they hate you. And if you speak behind your back, they will say all derogatory comments about you. So if you want an honor from people, connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Man kana yuridu al-izzah, whoever wants the glory, who wants a prestige, who wants an honor, فَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ جَمِيعًا. To Allah belongs all of the glory. That's what you want to seek. If you get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your side, you find everybody respect you, and sometimes you don't know why in the world did they respect you. And I guarantee you this, by the way. Sometime you will be in your business and so on, and in a meeting, and you ask a question. After you ask a question, you think, that was a stupid question. I shouldn't have said this. And suddenly, the person whom you're asking completely interpreted differently. and suddenly start speaking about subject which is different than what in your mind, and everybody will say, wow, this guy, how the guy, ask this question, where is this comes from? I guarantee you this happened. If you really are, if Allah wants to help you get people to respect you, even if you say something stupid, they will interpret it as something important. And suddenly you become the glory. Everybody respect and think you are the genius of your time. So yeah, this verse actually, it is any Muslim so stupid that he does not want to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him the honor that he deserves or he wants from everybody else, no matter who they are, those people. Then Allah continue, إليه يصعد الكلم الطيب والعمل الصالح يرفعه. To Allah ascends all of the goodly words and exalt the righteous deed, and the righteous deed exalted to him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالَّذِينَ يَمْكُرُونَ السَّيِّئَاتِ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ, and those people who plot evil will have severe punishment, and the plotting of theirs will perish. Here is, and this is why the Prophet ﷺ said, if you want something from somebody, ask with honor. Don't debase yourself. Don't degrade yourself. Because if no one can give you anything, Allah subhanahu will do it for you. And you have to believe this. Therefore, why you ask, why you degrade yourself in front of somebody? If Allah willed it, the person will give it to you. And if Allah didn't will it, no matter how think you, he loves you, he will never give it to you. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, am I saying? Oh, yeah. Yes. And then this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, whoever seeks the pleasure of Allah, even if it incurs a displeasure of people, Allah will accept them and make people respect them. But whoever seeks the acceptance of the people at the expense of Allah's displeasure, then Allah will reject them and then make people despise them. So if you want an honor, never compromise in this, in an issue of making a pleasure for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another one is very interesting in this surah, in this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that إِلَيْهِ يَصْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ, that if you say a good word, the good word will ascend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, and then the good deeds, وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَدْفَعُ, that Allah, when you do a good deed, then Allah exalted it and ascended to him. That directly tell you that going a good deed is different than doing a good deed, and the good word you get benefit from it. They all arrive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is something, when you talk a good word, it goes up, okay? But when you do a good deed, Allah exalted that good deed and he himself take it to him. So obviously that tell you, just to talk is cheap. Yes, you get benefit from saying something good, like giving a talk, but it is more important that also you focus in the good deeds. You have to also do the good deeds. When you study, these things, you recognize something. You recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't only create the universe for us, but Allah maintained it also. And this is why we look to our own body. We said, how many cells we keep changing. So that's a maintenance issue, renewal. Our bodies are renewed all the time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't leave things here. Then shouldn't we then have this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only create, but he creates and maintains, including even us. Shouldn't we always show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and submit to him? Why we always Muslim have to subjugate? I'm not talking about, when I talk about Muslim, I'm talking about you, I'm talking about Muslim in general. Like we look at all of the Muslim world. Why in the world they subjugate themselves to other people? Why? Why they cannot have their own honor and have their word and make their own decisions? If they truly believe in Allah, why would you see what's happening, like, for example, in Gaza? And here, look at what the student is doing, what the professor protest. Why the Muslim world? Nobody. Why? Are these afraid? Okay, if you're studying an engineering school, maybe you are not very religious, although you know some. How about Islamic school? Why the student in the Islamic school that's supposed to be the leaders of teach Islam, none of them is capable of even protesting like the American student here against the injustice? Why? Why? They are afraid. If this is the religion, so what is the value of the religion if you don't submit to Allah and recognize two things, that your fortune in life is His hand and your life is in His hand, and nothing will happen to you except by Allah's will. So if you do not, if you act differently, particularly for those people who study or dedicate their life to study religion, then religion means absolutely nothing. It's just words, it's just a profession. You do it to make money and have a prestige and they get followers, follow you who are idiots, like, just to follow you blind without looking to the fundamental of the religion. The fundamental of the religion to be an honorable person, a person who respect, who only slave to one, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and don't look to anybody. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't worry about your fortune, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ما يفتح الله للناس من رحمة فلا ممسك لها. If Allah will grant you some blessing, nobody can hold it out. Nobody can stop it. And if He hold it, if وإن يمسك فلا مرسل له. No, and if He hold it from you, nobody can give it to you. So why you are afraid in this regard? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء. You are the poor people. And Allah doesn't need you. You are the one who are in need. And Allah al-Ghani al-Hamid. And Allah subhanahu is worthy of all praise. He is out free of all needs. And if you don't straighten up, إن يشاء يذهبكم ويأتي بخلق جديد. You are not strong enough to protect yourself from Him, because if He wanted, He can move you, basically eliminate you and bring a new generation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ بِعَزِيزٍ. This is nothing, very, it's difficult for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's easy for Him. It's only you. You are the one who's benefit. And when He does, and when Allah show us all what we have now, it's a test. Because nobody can go, Allah, I didn't know. No, everybody's seeing. Not only that, frankly, but when you see, somebody will send me, a video about a professor in Berkeley, professor I think was economics, and she was being dragged by police because she is protesting against, all of the, atrocities that are happening between the Israelis and Gaza. Why? And no stupid professor in Egypt does it, or Saudi Arabia, and those mashayikh supposed to be, how can, at least the minimum you speak, So subhanallah. So I'll finish with this one just to illustrate also, I thought Fawaz will be here actually today so I can challenge him. Because the trouble with us, you think about it, I am an engineer, I'm an economist, I'm a computer scientist, I cannot study all of these things. It amazes me actually that older scholars, were so broad from studying religion and studying science and do original work. This is something which is perplexing to me. I was looking at just a couple of examples. Ibn Rushd, which is Averroes. Ibn Rushd has this theory. And actually, it's a verse probably in this surah too, that everything has a sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sunnah means a rule of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala runs everything with the rules. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, these rules do not change. So Ibn Rushd has this views that if you can, all these natural phenomena, it has a system, a rules of Allah. If I can understand and study the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then in that case, I can expect what is going to happen, what is the steps is happening. And therefore, he have written, so he wrote extensively. And this is, look at this subject. How can one person excel and write original work? No Google, no ChatGPT or anything. He wrote in mathematics, in medicine, He have a very big book in medicine, you know, astronomy, physics, mechanics, logic, geography, philosophy, psychology, music, you know, classical music, and then wrote in theology and in fiqh. And I always say the best book in comparative fiqh written by Ibn Rushd, which you look at all of the Imam Malik, Abu Hanifa, and Shafi'i, and Ahmad, and say why they differ when they're reading the same text from the Quran or the same hadith. Why they differ in their opinion. He analyzed it, you know. And I showed you the book. I think the book is here. This blue one right here. The Distinguished Jurist Primer. It's by his Bidayat al-Mujtahid wa Nihayat al-Muqtasid. And it exists in English and in Arabic. And then the other one is Ibn Sina. Ibn Sina, they said he wrote about 450 books. But the only the one, because remember when the Mongols came and burned all of the books, you know, the remaining was 240. And he wrote in philosophy, medicine, astronomy, alchemy, geology, geography, psychology, and Islamic theology. He has al-Uluhiyat, every book called al-Uluhiyat, logic, mathematics, physics, and poetry. I said, how come those people can comprehend? That means our brain can comprehend all of these things. We are the one who's selling ourselves short, frankly. And the more you challenge your brain, because we said the original cells, Allah doesn't change it. Your cell has your memory the best. But you can build more cells. You can build more neurons in your brain. But in order to build your neurons, it's almost like you exercise. If you exercise, you build more muscles. The brain is a muscle. And you do this, you know. So اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت. فإنك يا ربنا تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك. اللهم ادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الجهل والوهم إلى نور العلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم بفضلك ورحمتك على كلمة الحق والدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وعز المسلمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. Oh Allah, spread your mercy upon us. Shower us with your blessings. Increase our knowledge. Grant us forgiveness. And reward us with the company of the prophets in the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, forgive our parents and all our friends and relatives who have passed away. Oh Allah, make their graves a garden from heaven and grant them the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, we have many of our friends and relatives who are sick. We have our son Ma'raj, our daughter Aisha Wani, and many others. Oh Allah, grant to all of them full and speedy recovery. Oh Allah, guide our children, protect them, and make them righteous. Oh Allah, we have many of our brethren in Palestine, in Sudan, in Yemen, in Libya, in many parts of the Muslim world who are facing barbaric enemies, unjust world, and the complacent Muslim nation. Oh Allah, grant them victory, heal their trauma, protect their helpless. Oh Allah, recover their suffering, remove their suffering, and grant them peace and prosperity. Oh Allah, we ask you with every name you have elected for yourself, that none of us leave this gathering, but his pains have been relieved, his worries have been removed, his debts have been paid, his weaknesses have been concealed, his sins have been forgiven, and his needs have been fulfilled. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.